Welcome to Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. On this podcast, we bring the conversation to you, sharing engaging stories that motivate and build consensus in the nonprofit community. This podcast is about the innovators, the leaders on the front lines of adversity, guiding lights in the nonprofit industry affecting change. And through their stories, we can all join forces to become Civic Warriors. Hey, Warriors. Welcome to today's episode of Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. I'm your host, Brad Caruso, leader of Witham's not-for-profit practice. Today's guests are Katie Palenzuela and me, Lynn Shatton, of the Night Stalker Foundation. The Night Stalker Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization committed to supporting the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, families and unit members through family resiliency programs, college scholarships, support for the families of the fallen, and to preserve the legacy of the 160th. The 160th was formed in response to our country's need for a unique night-flying aviation rotary wing capability. The unit's motto is Night Stalkers Don't Quit, and it shows through the work they are doing as a unit and as a foundation. I've had the absolute pleasure of working with the foundation, this exemplary group of people for many years, and I'm really happy that we were able to do a second podcast together. Interestingly enough, we did a podcast, episode number 3, if anyone wants to check that out as well, with a few members of the foundation and the unit a few years ago, back in 2019. And I'm really excited that today we get to talk about where the foundation has gotten to, which is phenomenal, the growth and impact the foundation has had for the unit and its members and member families. So with that said, Katie and Lynn, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Thanks so much, Brad. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. I have two distinguished guests and really excited to hear about what the foundation has been doing and what you both have been doing, the hard work for the foundation. And where I always like to start is just with backgrounds. And I'll start with you, Katie. Maybe share a little bit of how you arrived at the Night Stalker Foundation and why is the mission of the foundation important to you?
Well, thank you for that. So I came to the foundation, I guess it's going on 3 years now, as a volunteer initially. So right around the time of just after the COVID epidemic kind of, I don't want to say wore off, but when things began to kind of get back to normal, there was a great need within our community for some additional support for families. And the Night Stalker Foundation stepped in and said, let's create a family program that promotes resiliency and will help kind of facilitate more of that community feel that we're used to. But prior to that, I was a military spouse and my husband was serving in the 160th at the time. So I'd spent a lot of time in the family readiness group space, which are the groups that are attached specifically to each company within the unit. And so I spent a lot of time around family activities and events and did a lot of training in the areas of support, whether it was care teams or leadership training. I came to the 160th wanting to really dig into the family support side of things anyways, because I was looking for that support myself. So when my friend Charlie Trussell called me and said that she had been tagged by the Night Stalker Foundation to kind of create this program, we immediately just kind of gelled on lots of ideas about what we thought would be helpful, what we thought was needed, and went to work in that space. So since then, my role has developed from volunteer to when Charlie had to leave us last year, I became the program director for the family. We call it the Family Collaborative Program. We promote lots of resources for just resilience, connection, community among our families, but also among just our families and their contact within the unit. We try to facilitate a lot of those types of things through different events that I'm sure we'll get into later. But that's basically been kind of my introduction to and the way that I've sort of become a part of what the foundation is doing on that side of the house.
Awesome. You married into it. Everything that goes along with it. Awesome.
I did. Yeah.
Love it. Lynn, how about yourself?
It's amazing to think it's been 6 or 7 years. So the foundation did not exist. And I was a veteran of the Cold War, a West Point graduate, and was commissioned and served over in Germany when it was reunified, like right after the wall came down. One of my good friends, Bill and Kate Reed, approached me. And Bill Reed started to talk about the Night Stalkers because he was part of the unit. And he said, you got to talk to this guy, Bill Golden. They're going to set up this foundation. And I said, you're going to have a foundation for a unit. And I think it's like one of the only ones, right? It has its own foundation just for the 160th SOAR, which really says a lot. If you've been following the news and looking at history, they're busy people. I am very busy. Been worked with the admissions field force at West Point, working with my state and my U.S. Senator Christopher Murphy. Gosh, going on 20 years. So I work with young people interested in service, and it's just one of the most rewarding things to be involved with, right? Looking at their entire files, talking to them, figuring out how they want to serve. Young patriots, if you will. So I was just thinking, I don't have any free time these days, but I thought a lot about it, right? Because when Katie says she marries into the unit, there's something very special about that. It's a very, very significant role to be the family, the spouse, to live it. Now, that's something I haven't done. I am just drafting off their greatness. I have admired the military aviator, and it's always been something I've been fascinated with. So I thought about it. My father was rescued off the roof of Saigon on the very last day of the American mission, and he was with Ambassador Graham Martin. And it was a military aviator that got him home. I'm trying not to choke up, but so I thought about it. It's kind of coming full circle. It's truly an honor. And I said, I have to do this. I love aviation. When I was commissioned, went to the academies in the early years, women had a lot of restrictions on what they could do. I wanted to fly. I didn't have the guts. I also think there's a lot of, hey, you can't do this and you can't do this and you can't do this. So I realized, slept on it a little bit. I have to do this. And so I was part of the inaugural board. And then after really trying to start something from the ground up, realizing we need good people, realizing there's a big vacuum here for what Katie does, probably one of the very best things that the foundation did was to recognize the gap. What was missing, right, was to find a way to work with families, to help families. So my role, which kind of fits my background, is the chair of scholarship program. And that was probably the biggest expense, Brad, of really what we did. And the Night Stalker Association had been doing it a long time on their own. So I'm the chair of the scholarship program. I'm really good at spending money and figuring out how to help these young patriots, this generation that's part of Katie's world, right? How to help them. So that's kind of my story. And then now Katie's come in and really is just, after Charlie, just been a fantastic ad. I can't say enough great things. I don't know how I'm here. It's still 6 or 7 years later. So they must be okay and happy with me. But that's kind of the short of it. I am just thrilled to be here and be part of these, helping in all the ways that I can to make this kind of a top tier, fantastic program.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for the personal story, as well as both of you for sharing your background, how you got here. Very clearly, both very passionate patriots of our country, of serving this unit, of serving the foundation. And that translates through. I always said, from the first meeting I had with the team over there, I was like, this is the most top-notch group of people. And I'd never heard of it before the first conversation. But what I realized very early on, and I said this from the day I met everybody, I met Brian and Bill and Kevin and a few others, and I was like, this is going to be a very, very successful group. Like, just the way that the first board meeting I attended, I'm like, just the way that you approached it, the way that their mindset was just strategy, and just the humbleness of, like, everybody was very pleasant. Everybody was very humble with how they approached it. But also I could tell, I'm like, these people have probably done some pretty impressive things in life that they don't talk about. Here I am, just like a simple-minded accountant. I'm like, I've really done nothing except, crunching numbers and, being a mild-mannered firefighter. But I was always in awe and got the pleasure of meeting everybody. But one thing I want to share with our audience, and Katie, obviously with your husband in the unit, maybe tell us a little bit about what makes the 160th a special breed of human.
Yeah, my husband is now retired. He was in the unit for over a decade, and maybe the best way to answer this question is just to talk about why we came to the unit. You can't just show up and say, hey, I want to be in the 160th. It's a very extensive process of evaluation and assessment. This is a unit, I think, that recognizes that rather than just looking at the soldier as an individual, it's kind of like a whole family approach, because serving in this unit is a whole family. mission. It is something that everybody kind of has to rally around because there's not a lot that's known about it from the outside looking in. I think my husband had been on his way into the unit for almost a year before I was allowed to know much of anything that actually goes on, what they actually do. And even that knowledge after 10 years is pretty limited, and all of that is by design. When you say like, I'd never heard of them and I don't really know what they do, good. That's kind of the way that it's meant to be. But I think that in the time that I spent in the unit and the people that are there, it is very different. It's a small, very tight-knit community that is very focused. And if you read the creed that is written, the Night Stalker Creed, these are people that show up to do something that most people don't want to do. And the only reward after the mission is complete is another one. That's just as difficult. That's just as dangerous. So when you think about all of the different ways that we hear special operations discussed, I think that because the 160th is the only special operations aviation unit on the planet, it's at the very tip of the spear. You have to expect it to be that way. So if I had to describe what a Night Stalker is like, they are dedicated, they're incredibly brave and courageous. And I'm allowed to say this because they know that I love them. They're a little nuts, they got to have a little something extra about them that makes them want to go and do those things. But I think where it comes from is from a very deep need to protect. And my husband, I think he is a protector and he is a provider first and foremost, always. And he came into the Army right after 9/11. We were freshmen in college when that happened. And that is he dropped out of school that day, went and enlisted and was in ever since. But when he came to the 160th, he said that it was the first place that he felt a real sense of duty, specifically to a very specific mission. And their jobs across the regiment are very specific. They are subject matter experts, and they are the kings and queens of planning and contingencies. If you live with one, then there's a plan, and then there's like 1,000 contingencies. They make you want to believe that this country is really worth fighting for, that there's something very special about the way that we live in America and the way that we want to raise our children and the way that the world that we want them to inherit from us.
Absolutely love that. And two things there. One, I know why I get along with everybody because I too am a little bit crazy. And whenever I hear people say that, I'm like, yeah, like it's hard to describe, but like it's a very positive thing. But like if you don't understand it, it's like you can misunderstand it. But the other thing that, if you can elaborate on a little bit, that I've seen in my years working with the foundation, working with some of the individuals over there, is I always see a sign off NSDQ. What does NSDQ mean?
Next stop, Dairy Queen. Just kidding.
Good. I was always curious.
No, that's a very old B1 joke that, and we don't often wear a lot of that on our person when we're out in public, but if I do and people ask, I tell them it's an ice cream social club. But NSDQ stands for Night Stalkers Don't Quit. And it is a motto that I believe is ingrained in the way that we live, whether it's the Night Stalker soldier, service member, or it's the spouse, or it's the kids. We learn how to roll with it. We learn how to go from one thing right to the next. We are really great at thinking on our feet. We're really good at the pivot, and kind of always. I think that's just that NSDQ just kind of lives in the back of our minds, and I think. Maybe for the service members, it's more along the lines of when you're thinking that it's mission specific, they would never leave anybody behind. They would never leave a mission undone. They are going to see it unto the very, very, very end. And I think the way that mentality and that it's something that you take onto yourself, it becomes a part of you in the way that you think and the way that you act. So when I send my husband off, when I would send my husband off and be like, all right, see you later. This is one of the things that makes this unit unique, is that there's never a set time. Like, when are you going to come home? I'm going to come home and we're done. I'm going to come home and the mission is complete. And not a minute before, not with anybody left behind, and not until, we don't do anything halfway. It's going to be done to the exact specifications, and then we'll be home after that. And so, as a wife and as a mom of two kids, that mentality lived in us too, because we knew we're going to keep going. We're going to keep, rowing the boat and living life, keeping things rolling. And when he's done, he'll be back.
I love every minute of that. And I wish there was either a business class or a college course or something that we delivered to like my company that would talk about like, this is the integrity of a human, and this is like what makes somebody, good at life. And all those values that you described would be in it, and they would make people better people in the world and more enjoyable to be around in general. Because if everybody had that attitude of like, we're not done till we're done, you would accomplish a lot more. You would have, much more joy and pride in the work you do. There's just a lot that you can take away from that.
What that builds also, just kind of hopping on to what you said about that the world could use more of that. One of the things that we teach in our spouses program is we teach about capacity and agency. Capacity being your ability to, I have a very good friend who's a Division I college coach, and she says capacity is your ability to move through life playing offense, so that it's a mindset and a way of approaching things that this isn't something that's happening to me. It's something that is happening, and I'm going to respond. I'm going to play ball with it. And I think when you think of those words, capacity and agency, it's your ability to use the tools that you have so that you are happening along with life. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, you're able to move with it instead of being run over by it. That's an SDQ. These people have great, great capacity that seems bottomless at times, and just great agency that they are able to understand the things that are happening and to operate at a very, very high level within those circumstances and come out on the other side and next. So,
well, just to say, Brad, to your point, units have mottos. So Night Stalkers Don't Quit reflects an ethos and a culture of who they are. Rangers lead the way. And that culture is incredibly selective when you look at the size of the regiment and their function. And you see something like what the public just witnessed, right, with the raid in South America. And now you see in a very public way a recognition of the warrant officer who was injured. And let's just say on an ongoing basis for listeners, and Katie knows this all too well, this is going on all the time for a long time, since 9/11, like nonstop. What you hear about in the public are only those times when something's kind of off, right? Like Black Hawk Down, and you see what just recently in the Middle East, the rescue operation. We don't leave people behind, right? So people are seeing snippets of who 160th SOAR is, and that probably was my biggest, most difficult hurdle with this group of quiet professionals. Is when you create a foundation, you got to raise money and talk to people, and they don't want to talk to anybody. So it's like, you gotta get the story out there. So let's get the ones that are already public, that are already in films, and be able to say who you are. But they don't do that. And anyway, that's one of the most inspiring things to me.
No, it's great context, and I think as you continue to share more information, you start understanding these terms like resiliency, and then how it translates into real life things that literally just happened very recently in the news that a lot of people may not connect the dots on. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it. Getting into the foundation, and Katie, you started talking about this a little bit, and talking about your resiliency program, talking about different family programs that you have. Maybe dive into a little bit more about some of the granular aspects of your programmatic activities that you have.
Sure. So our program kind of revolves around events. That's kind of where it started. One of the first things that we did as a program right out of the gate was to fill a gap where family retreats used to be provided by a different organization within the military, within the regiment. Budgets, those types of things are always happening to us, which is where a foundation like the NSF makes a huge difference, so that as budgets and things shift through different administrations and different seasons of our country, were able to kind of fill those gaps. So family retreats was one of the first things that we stepped in to provide. This was when Charlie was still here, and we kind of like initiated this thing together. And family retreats that we had attended, were always just a time to get away, to disconnect from life, from, get our husbands away from work and go to a place that was provided for you, where you don't have to worry about what you're going to make for dinner. And it's a vacation. It's a quick little weekend away. And curriculum in that aspect kind of varied. I'd been to programs where, it was like, here's your childcare, here's your hotel and some food vouchers. Make sure that you communicate well and enjoy yourself. And that was it. And that was great. It's something that we wouldn't have, a lot of us wouldn't have been able to do otherwise without that being provided. But I think, I'll just speak from my behalf from where this came from, is that I remember in the summer of 2021 that I attended a retreat, and there was a presenter or a facilitator who was there, who was a therapist, and he was trained in the Gottman method. And if you don't know, John Gottman is like the godfather of family therapy, marriage therapy, and he's just well known across the board. So this was a retreat where we actually did sit in a hotel room, conference room for 8 hours and get taught. And we had to turn to each other and do activities. And, my husband and I at the time, we'd been married for well over, 12 or 15 years or something like that. And it really put us on the spot, but we learned a lot from it. And I remember telling him that weekend, the thing that's missing is that a lot of what they're teaching is good generalization, but what's missing is something that's specific to our community, because I will die on the hill that says special operations communities are different than anywhere else. I spent time in conventional Army branches of aviation and otherwise, and it is different. It's not any better. It's not any worse. It's specific. It's unique. It's different. And the needs of that community are also different. So it sort of happened in and of that way that I told him, I'm like, this would be so much better if it was Night Stalker specific. Fast forward a few months after that, and I got in touch with Charlie through a luncheon that she and I attended. And it's a funny story that I'll leave for another time. But we basically looked at each other and we're like, there has got to be something better, because this is great, but there are people here that are hungry and thirsty for some support, something that is going to help them thrive, because we are all in survival mode. And this just happened to be a luncheon where the majority of the people that were there had a husband at dinner the night before, but by that morning before lunch, he was out, he was gone. And so that's a normal occurrence for a lot of our spouses and families. And so our first step into family retreats was to approach it from a place of, we want connection here, and we want a curriculum that is Night Stalker specific. So what is it that these families need? We did tons of surveys, and Charlie reached out to a lot of organizations that are doing research that are very specific just to the experience of soldiers and families in special ops. And so we got some training done through an organization that's called it's called MSOF, Military Special Operations. I'm going to mess this up and she's going to kill me, but it's MSOF. It's the Military Special Operations Family Collaborative. And they are a healthcare initiative that does a ton of work. They're incredible. But they trained us in some of their curriculum that is very specific to how do we thrive inside of this very unique community. And that is really where, when we did our first family retreat was awful. It was a mess. And we learned from every single one. Every single one of our retreats is different. We survey the heck out of people. We ask them for their honest feedback. We spend time with them and talk with them and get their feedback constantly. We're always asking and listening and asking and listening. And so what that has led to is an understanding that there's a very deep need. In order to thrive inside of this community, we need to be able to connect with one another, with our spouse, with our kids. Our Night Stalker service members need to connect with their kids. That's the piece that it's missing. And where community is, connection thrives. And that just makes all of the difference. So short story long, which I'm very well known for, that's sort of the way that we came into this space of, and it has really shaped how we have built our programs and events from here on out. So in the beginning, we did a couple of family retreats. We also had some kid-based events where we would just we'd rent out a facility that's like, a jump trampoline park or something like that and bring people in. Some of the other events that have been around since the very beginning that have remained consistent, we do a children's fair every year at each of the locations where Night Stalkers are stationed. So there's 3 of those every year. And that is basically just like a free-for-all fun night at an event venue the foundation provides. And we have local vendors that come in that provide children's services, whether that is a sport or some type of teaching tool, arts and crafts, or like medical services. So we have everybody from your local pediatrician's office to your, MMA gym and, cheerleading places. Or we have a lot of like haircut salons that work well with kids that have, sensitivity to, everybody hates a haircut when they're little. So it's a really broad.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, right? It's a really broad, just array of providers. And what that does is that obviously you get a fun family night with your kids and your husband if he's in town, and yourself. I'm speaking from a spouse's perspective. But then you can also get plugged in to your community. Like, well, I just got here, or I've been here for a while, but I haven't spent a lot of time. And Night Stalker families, we're busy folks. We like to stay busy and to be involved. So, my kids want to try soccer, or my kids want to join the Boy Scouts, or we're looking for, a speech therapist, or we're looking for somebody local that provides pediatric mental health support. So we have all of those people in one place. And that's our children's fair. We do that at all 3 of our locations every year. Family retreats have grown, and we continue those are very consistent things that we do for each of our locations once a year. I would say the newer programs have been our spouse development program, which we call Radiance. That is probably the newest and I don't want to say the fastest growing, but I hear something about it every day. So it's something that's being very sought after, and that just tells us where the needs are, So Radiance is a program I wrote for myself about 6 years ago. And I think that's the coolest part about the work that I get to do, is that during really difficult seasons of when we were serving in this unit, there were questions that I had and just experiences that were really difficult, whether that's balancing something that happened in my personal life while life is just lifing over here in Night Stalker land, whether it was a conflict or something that created, difficulty inside of my marriage or and parenting as a team. That is something that is really hard to do as a military family, just those constant adjustments of having dad home and having him gone, and just those dynamics. And so as a woman, I think, and an ambitious one, I got to a point where I just felt like I had no idea who I was anymore, because it was constant output. There was plenty of Katie to go around for everybody else. But at the end of the day, I really felt like my identity was tied up in a lot of things that had nothing to do with me. And so that was sort of my coping mechanism, is that I said, if I was going to teach me what to do, how would I help me? And so what came from that over several years is Radiance. And it's a 3-month program that we provide for spouses. That is an application-based program. The application is pretty, this isn't like, what's your name and your email address and what unit are you assigned to, and check yes or no. This is a lot of deep, reflective questions. And it is a program that is designed for women that are looking to grow themselves individually. It's a strengths-based program. I'm a certified strengths coach. So if you've ever heard of Clifton Strengths, we have utilized that Clifton Strengths and adapted it into almost all of the curriculum that we use, whether it's family retreats and obviously our spouse program. We've used it with parents and teenagers. It's turned out to be just an incredible tool that helps us to really focus on individual talents and how to develop those into strengths that help you approach life, whether that's your work, the way that you communicate, the way that you parent, the way that you speak to yourself, and the way that you operate, and kind of figuring out like what it is that you want to do with your life, which is a question that I think probably every mom asks at some point in time. Is like, my whole life is about raising these human beings, and now, like, once they get older, my youngest is about to start her senior year, and it's kind of like I keep saying it. I'm like, I'm gonna have to get a life. I'm really gonna have to get a life. And thankfully, being a part of, being allowed to develop and present this program through the NSF has allowed me a place where I feel pretty good about that. I know who I am, and I like who I am, and I know where and how to address my energy and my efforts. And that just creates confidence. It creates competence, which is really, really important. And what a lot of our ladies say after they have been, it's a 3-month program. There's the different phases of it. There's virtual group classes, there's one-on-one coaching, and then we do a lot more group integration, and then it ends in a retreat at the very end. But it allows them the opportunity to say, this is a time and a space that's just for me, and I'm going to focus on who I am, on what I bring to the table. My motto for these ladies is, you bring a lot to the table, and it's okay to act like it. So it's building that confidence in that space where you can let go of some of the confines of motherhood and of Night Stalker life that really will kind of hold you back from progressing as an individual, as a professional, whatever that might look like.
What's funny is I hear a lot of words that you said, which I love. Just the terminology is it goes a long way, but like things like radiance, confidence, Milan, you said quiet professional, resiliency, all of those are great values that you're bringing into your programs, which carry a lot of weight and show what you care about, developing confidence in people, developing confidence in the next generation, as you said as well. And I think all of us, as you said, Katie, are looking for an identity. I don't know that it's just yourself. I think it's many of us. I think,
I've definitely found out, like, in a lot of ways that you're like, I can't, I tell this to myself all the time. You can't be the only one. It's okay.
Well, anybody that doesn't feel that is partially lying to themselves. But I started triathloning lately. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go try to swim a mile. And I'm like, why? And my wife's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I need a purpose. Like, being an accountant's boring. Sometimes, being around the kids, sometimes it's awesome. I love being around my kids. I love coaching my kids. But sometimes I want to spend somewhere else other than being on a baseball field for 4 hours. Just part of being a human. And there's a big part of that, and I can certainly relate to you from that perspective.
So, Brad, you're an emergency responder. You're doing some firefighting. You kind of had that adrenaline junkie piece. And,
no doubt.
Katie, when you say you had 10 years with the regiment, and maybe you can't answer this, but how long or how many times were you a single mom?
It was a lot. I would say anywhere from 3 to 9 months out of the year.
Let's take a look at this as a math major. That's my math side.
Okay, good.
Talking about you and the families in the regiment being, like on their own. And I say single mom, I'm just saying single parent geographically, right? Because they're gone. They got a lot going on, and they're not present in the way that, say, Brad, you might be, or Brad, you're running out on a call, right? You're not present for your family. So think about that. The average American, and I do a lot of work on this, but like in Vietnam, there was a draft. In the World Wars, 100%, almost every able-bodied male served. So the nation, families, spouses, children, parents, they understood the weight of service. So now you are in the 1%, right? So America today doesn't know its defenders like it once did. And even in my own lifetime in Vietnam, everybody felt the draft and families felt it. But your life and the Night Stalkers that are gone literally all the time. And I'm talking, it came real for me when I met, I think it was Willie Franks, who is a Gold Star, mom, wife. Like, in 2 hours, Brad, right? So kind of like you get a call and you got to go back and you're gone. And then Katie and the families are dealing with this all the time.
Perpetually. Yeah.
Perpetually. And who knows it? Who knows it anymore? So thank goodness for you, Brad, who are looking at like this podcast as Civic Warriors, but who these people are, because they are an all volunteer force and they are gone and they don't say it and they're carrying it and the weight is heavy. And it's like Churchill said, you know, it's carried by the very few for the very many. And that's what it's like today. And when I went and visited the regiment and had a chance to go out to Range 29er and do all the cool stuff and watch them, I'm realizing when Roger Osecki said to me, they have been continuously gone since 9/11. And the only thing you hear about is when something goes wrong, right? So this is an incredible weight carried for the nation by people like Katie and her family, right? And so your podcast is just, it's great because it's just saying, hey, can we just take a look here? Because they're the very people who don't say anything, right? In Vietnam, we had protests across the country, people leaving the country. This is a different kind of warrior today that's carrying this kind of the mantle of and it's extraordinary. It's going to go down in history, the things they are doing right now. I know you have that on your agenda that have never been done.
Oh, without a doubt. And the term sacrifice comes to mind greatly of, I think so many people today don't have this concept of sacrifice where they don't understand what it means or they don't want to accept it. And knowing, you know, Katie, the sacrifice that both your husband, yourself, your family makes to serve our country cannot go unnoticed. And I really hope that we always remember that. I remember one of the things on the first Night Stalker episode that I think it was Bill telling me. He said, it's not enough to never forget. You have to always remember. And it was just something that like always stuck in my head, that we always have to remember that sacrifice that yourself has made, that your family has made, that every member of that unit has made. And just speaking from, to your point, Milan, just speaking from personal experience, and mine's a lot less difficult and similar. But if there's ever a natural disaster, I always, this is what people marvel at in the first responder world. And the Night Stalker world that you just mentioned is on steroids from this perspective. And I'll explain. As a firefighter, you know, we had a hurricane once and I'm getting all these fire calls of water rescues. And my wife, and my wife looks at me and she's like, "You're not going to leave, are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there's people like drowning out there." She's like, "You're going to leave your family to go help strangers?" I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "All right, don't die." I'm like, "All right, you too." and it's like, it's one of those things. But I was gone for 24 hours, right? Like I was gone for 24 hours. I went to work the next day. People were like, "You look like," I'm like, "I feel like too," but it was a crazy day. To your point, Katie and Milan, what you're saying is, you know, you're, on a drop of a pin, your family member could be gone for an unknown amount of time. You know what it is now because you have 20/20 hindsight. But at that time, it's this individual is sacrificing for his family and his country for the next X amount of time. Let's say it's 180 days, 240 days. It's insane. 3/4 of the year.
3 months, 9 months. It's insane. It's gone. Yeah. Like you just got to figure it out on your own.
And what I want the world to always take away from these conversations is, you know, these are the individuals on this conversation today that are making those. They have a foundation. The reason why they exist is to continue to support everybody in that ecosystem and also highlight the fact that you're doing a phenomenal job of where you were 6 years ago to where you are today, or you know, the many years that the foundation's been in existence. I mean, think about how much it's expanded. Think about how many people are now involved and how many more people. Think about how many more scholarships that you give out every year, due to the generosity of the world, which we appreciate, and also due to the hard work of folks like Katie, who came in and really expanded the programmatic, you know, you, Milan, expanding the scholarship program. And the thing I always want people to take away, just personally, when I think about like telling my employees and kids out of college, I always want them to take away that, like, you have to try and fail. And like you mentioned it specifically, Katie, which I love, which is, you know, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I say that all the time at work. Like, I'm in charge of 300 people. I'm like, you think I knew what I was doing? I didn't. I made a choice. It failed. I tried again. I made a choice. It failed. I tried again. And we continue to do that. And that's what makes people successful. And, the successful people are the ones that learn from their mistakes. So I don't want to just say you could just keep failing and that's okay. It's not. But if you never take that step, you're never going to grow. If you never take that step, you're never going to get to that next level. And, if we want to help the next generation, we have to just keep moving forward, to your point. So, yeah, really impactful lesson.
We win or we learn. That's what we've always, I think Tom Brady said that. But that's something that we've always told our kids in the realm of, academics or sports or whatever. You win or you learn. And if you're learning, that means that you can continue to move forward. You just got to do something different because whatever you tried didn't work. I think probably the best way maybe to explain the tempo and just that, like going back to what you said about what life is like on a day-to-day basis, I think something that everybody can relate to is like a family dinner. Like everybody sits down to family dinner, and that space of time, like think about how long that takes, right? Like how long you sit at the table together, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. That's how quick it happens. There's been many times where the phone rings at the table. He gets up, takes a phone call, comes back, kisses you on the, and he's gone just like that fast. So those are that type of mentality changes the way that you see things. It can sometimes make you like a little wary of dinner time because you're like, oh, no, what's going, but it is definitely, I think, to your point, like where we lived on Fort Campbell for years, while we were stationed there. And we're always around other people that are a part of the 101st, which is there at Fort Campbell. And I'd always get asked, like, where'd he go? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, when's he coming back? I don't know. Well, what's he doing? Definitely don't know that either. So,
and if I did, I can't tell you.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know you, dude. Like, you live down the street. I see you walk your dog. Like, I'm going to tell you. I don't know. So it becomes that very kind of, secrecy it's in our creed. Secrecy is sort of a way of life because of that. And I think to connect this back to our programs, whether it's our family program, our spouse program, our kids camp, which I can tell you about as well, that's the disconnect, right? Because when you live in a way that is that quiet professional, like secrecy is just part of it. There's just certain things that you don't talk about. There's just, I see now that my husband is retired and my kids are in a school now that is separate from them. We don't live in we live outside of Nashville. So there's not like a military community that's on top of us or that we're in right now. So some of the things that when people ask them questions or whatever, they stop for a second and they're like, am I allowed to say that? And so it's different. Like it just sort of feeds into the way that you live. And I think for kids, especially, we're so overexposed as a society with social media and with just 24-hour news. And that's a whole other podcast in and of itself, a series probably that we could talk about. But I think when it comes to people who are meant to live in such a way that everybody doesn't need to know what you're doing and it's for their own good, right? I don't need to know where he is, what he's doing, or when he's going to come back. Not knowing is what protects me. Not knowing is what protects him. And that is something that, especially in this day and age, people really can't wrap their minds around. Our community, I would dare to say, I want to speak for everyone, struggles more in the day and age where things are more visible and are more covered by the news, where, things are popping up and suddenly everybody knows exactly what your unit is and exactly what, you do and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you don't, but also, okay. But that type of visibility makes a lot of us uncomfortable, especially those of us that kind of grew up in the old school. We're like, ooh, you can't talk about that. You can't say that name. You can't put that on TV. Like that's not what we're used to. So it's a constant transitional life that we lead where we're just trying to figure out the best way to go about it, which in a lot of ways isn't different from anybody else. It's just the circumstances are a lot different. What we're working with is a little bit different.
Let me add, Brad, you have on your agenda to talk about how NSF has grown and about scholarship. And I'll kind of do a bullet on that. There's been a lot of people involved on the backside in the unit, on the advisory committee, on the board, volunteers that have been involved with the Night Stalker Association, which is the membership group that was carrying the scholarships for a long, long time before we came in. But like all of Katie's portion with the Resiliency and Collaborative program and now the Radiance program, like that did not exist. So when we look at growth, it's quite extraordinary where the foundations come in a short period of time. And I'm thinking like 6 to 7 years in scholarship in particular. And I'd say right now, hand in hand, the recognition for what Katie and the Collaborative and Radiance program and the retreats and the kids camps and really supporting the families that make this unit possible, right? To sustain the op tempo of the unit. That is about the same size, the budget for what we're doing in that area as what we're doing in scholarship. So scholarship has been around for a while. And when you think about how important education is, and I think about it as the future, the legacy of this community that they have. When we started out in 2021, we had like 60, scholars, right? So it was extraordinary that the association was managing that. And then we're coming in to say, look, we're going to raise funds. We're going to figure out how to support you all. And we have tripled, right? So we have scholars now, 3 times that this year. We're going from 60 scholarships to over 180. We went from basically 140, 160,000, which was kind of a cool budget to have for the 160th SOAR, to almost 3x in the budget for those scholars. So when you think about like Katie's children and the children in this community whose parent was gone, like a lot of their life, like missed their birth, and the stress on the family, this is the future. Now, I read every single essay and I want to tell you about who those scholars are, right? Because it's astonishing the legacy that the families and the soldiers have on the children. These essays and the amount of service that they inherit. So a lot of them go to serve, right? They go ROTC, they're getting scholarships. A lot of them want to fly. So they've felt that. I don't know. That's that crazy adrenaline junkie piece that Katie's talking about. It's in their blood. They just want to go fly. And a lot of them want to go into healthcare, which is interesting. The essays say, I want to care for those. I want to work with veterans and care for them. And so we have not only grown in size and fundraising, in the number of scholars, the size of the award itself, the memorial piece, which recognizes those who didn't survive, those who died, and we establish a scholarship in their name. But we also have internships, which we started. It's like, wait a minute, we have this great pool of people. Let's start an internship. Whoa, genius. Let's have an internship. So we have these young people who are part of the Night Stalker family coming in and being interns. So that's new. We've also taken the platform, which was, imagine, hey, Brad, you got some people, like we're all sending each other little emails. So no, we have gone to a submittable platform where it's what most of these programs are using. So we can automate, professionalize the application, the experience, not only for Katie's children, right, or dependents or spouses to apply, but on the back end, the administration it was so much work. Imagine chasing all the emails and all the pieces of one file, right? So now you got some
crazy auditor asking you questions about them too.
Oh yes, we could generate reports. We actually can look at files. But one of the coolest things, and I'll end it here because this is just showing the growth, the whole resiliency program getting established, right? And now the Radiance piece, very, very cool because Katie's lived that, right? But the scholarship is the future. This is the kids and who they are and helping them out. Is that the scoring for that would have been like, hey, Brad, hey, Katie, hey, Josie, and then we're all sitting there literally like with a pen, they're scoring and redacting by hand. So now it's so professionalized. When you score, Brad, you're like, say, okay, you have someone affiliated with the unit, you're scoring and looking at this particular file from this particular candidate. You can go through and read that essay. And I'm telling you, it connects you personally in a way that it's so intimate, right? So you read a dozen essays and you're like, wow, these are who these people are. Because they talk about their mom. They talk about their dad. They talk about their incredible desire to continue the mission in the next generation. I mean, it's powerful stuff. So now we have bodies of scorers going in a professional system who are tied personally. And even if they haven't been in the unit in a while, right? Or they were someone who didn't serve in the unit, but very close to them, man, they get to be right in there. So that's what we've seen in growth. The new program, triple the involvement, triple the budget, because these guys as fundraisers have made that their mission. You can see the results of that. And it's just been a wild ride. And I'm up here in Connecticut just watching it go and being part of it and seeing Katie take off, because what she's lived, what she's experienced is she knows that's what a lot of other people have lived and experienced too. So taking it to another level. And hopefully, I don't know if that addresses the next agenda item, but I kind of wanted to just, jump on scholarship, because we have got some incredible people involved with taking it to another level. Karen Harper, Gail and Angel Gonzalez, Tina Anglin, just that piece alone to see it soaring. It's extraordinary.
I think that speaks to a lot of things. I mean, first and foremost, you've been able to grow the budget of the organization for how many, the impact that you're having. You've grown the number of programs that you have, that you offer. Early on in the episode when you said, hey, one of the things that we focused on was filling some of the gaps, and you've addressed, so many different things that create a sustainable community and a sustainable foundation. You're implementing new systems to help it thrive, and it's not doing it manually. You're improving the fundraising by getting the right people on the bus. You're engaging the next generation by having them as interns. Katie's there helping others that are experiencing the same thing that she experienced. All of those aspects, I think, are a very key takeaway, that it went from, small foundation, we're building this, to we're really helping to address and solve what we were trying to solve for. But we're not going to, to your ethos, we're not stopping there either. We keep introducing a new program, and we keep introducing a new aspect of this, or we're going to keep improving our systems. And that's the thing, that never quit attitude that I think carries through, that you can empirically, you could write a book on how you took a foundation from starting to thriving. And I guarantee a lot of people could glean a lot of very important lessons, trial and error, as well as the successes you've had, as well as, how you approach tactically as well as strategically the foundation as a whole and the activities as a whole. So it's really incredible. And there's many more programs that I know in looking at even at this year, just as your nerdy accountant over here, you had your kids camp this year, which I think, looked like a newer program, which also a super, cool idea. And, everybody knows how expensive camp is. Everybody knows how, filling your kids' time in the summertime, for those that are parents, that sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge, and you don't want your kids sitting in front of the TV. You want them being out and about with other kids and doing other things. So, even that as an additional programmatic element, I think is awesome.
I'll speak to Kids Camp quickly here. So Kids Camp was, I call it Charlie Tressel's baby. She was our original program director for family programs. And she wanted kids to get to go to Night Stalker camp for a week, where they would get to learn, some things that are related to a lot of the things that their service member parent, their Night Stalker parent did. And like with everything that we do, when we build an event or a program, we want to build it around a need. So one of the things that we know from research is that one of the most important things to establish and maintain for kids that are growing up in this lifestyle is pride in the legacy of service. And what makes their experience different is that our soldiers, our Night Stalkers, they don't go to work in uniform. They go to work in civilian clothes. So they don't see their parent in uniform. There's no go to work with mom or dad day. Like, you can't do that. In the conventional Army, especially during all of GWAT, you'd see homecoming videos of, big rooms where they'd come back in and there's smoke and there's music and there's all of these incredible, exciting reunions that happen. Like, doesn't happen. Our kids don't see any of that. Now they see it like in other spaces, but their experience is much different from that. So what ends up happening is that there's that gap of connection again between understanding the legacy of your service and what it means to be a Night Stalker kid, and how that connects is just understanding what a Night Stalker does, like what that's like. And on top of all of that, when you look at it kind of longitudinally, you get to the end of service or when kids are older, there's a big disconnect between Night Stalker parents and their kids because of the time that they spend away and because they don't really know what they do. They have no idea. So Kids Camp was Charlie's dream child, that she thought, we're going to create this meaningful connection for kids and help them to understand. And we're going to bring Night Stalkers there to teach. And it was this really, really big idea that was brought together last summer near Nashville. So we ended up partnering with our local YMCA and this incredible facility that's right outside of Nashville. And we sent 94 kids to camp last summer through that partnership. And the YMCA's just their curriculum in general really aligns very much with the system of values that we as a foundation believe in, and really the way that our unit operates. There's a lot of focus on teamwork and character and hard work and things like that. So the most incredible camp experience that you can imagine. And then what we also did is we partnered with the regiment to send some soldiers out, and they taught some really basic, what we called Night Stalker classes. And what they learned is a lot of the very simple, in the simplest terms, basic skills. They learned things like survival skills with building fires and creating shelters. They learned, some of the older kids learned some land navigation and some basic first aid. But they were like, as the kids said, these are real live Night Stalkers that showed up in work uniform and taught them these classes. And then we had them come out for a second day. They flew the helicopters in, landed. They had a static display. A lot of the pilots who flew in that day and the crew members had kids that were at camp. And, we sent 94 kids. There were 256 kids at camp that week. So we were a small contingent that was in with Gen Pop of everybody else, right? But I mean, when those helicopters flew in and landed on the soccer field, all of the staff was out watching, and they can put on a show when they need to. They can do some kind of maneuvers and kind of blow the tops of the trees off. And we had to, RIP a set of bleachers that were a little too close to the LZ, and everybody else thought it was great. I was the one that was having a heart attack while it was happening. But to see the reaction, not just of the other kids at camp, but the reaction of the other adults that were there and watching this happen, created a sense of pride that you just can't duplicate that unless you send them back to camp. So we piloted that partnership and that program last summer, sent 94 kids. We're currently, this summer, there will be 3 weeks of camp, and they'll be in 3 separate locations. And I think our total right now is about 170 kids total that are going to go. And in each one of those locations, they'll have those Night Stalker specific pieces that are built into their week of camp. So YMCA camps are incredible. The facilities are just nuts. I ziplined. I got near a horse. I didn't ride it, but there's that. There's tons of, I'm an outsidesy person. I'm not outdoorsy. I love to be outside, but I am I'm not sleeping out there. And, I'm there for that part of it. I love to be outside. I love to hike. I'm not sleeping there. And I'm an HVAC kind of girl. I need
you need air conditioning
control.
Yeah.
I think in and of itself, for a lot of people who know me well, it was funny that I'm the one that's attending camp with all of these kids, and I'm going for 3 weeks this summer, and I can't wait. I'm so excited. I get to be Camp Katie again, or the bug spray lady, as I was also called that week.
Are they going to call it Camp Katie in the future?
No, I think the takeaway from that is just, and probably the part of it that was the most impactful to me, is that the way that our foundation watched this happen, saw the need, and said, double it, triple it. We need more of this. Come and talk to these people. Come and tell them what this was like. And some of the most incredible moments for me have been sitting in rooms where I get to talk about camp or I get to talk about one of our other programs and the generosity of people that are in those spaces that see value. And one of my favorite things to tell Night Stalkers, soldiers and wives and kids and spouses when I'm with them is that at any given time, wherever you're sitting and whatever it is that you're doing, there's somebody out there that doesn't know you, doesn't know your name, has never seen you before, is never going to know your kids or what they're doing or what they're interested in. And they care enough that they are willing to donate their time, their energy, their resources, their money to make these things happen. And I wish that everybody could get to sit in a space where that kind of generosity lives. It is overwhelming. It takes me days to process it afterwards because it is just such an incredible space. But it is literally because of the fundraising work that our incredible board has done, and the people that are just such huge supporters of what it is that we are trying to provide. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. There needs to be 3 Camp Katies, but right now there's just 1, which is okay. It's an incredible thing that we get to do. And to the point of the foundation's growth, I mean, I stepped in May 1st will be a year when I stepped into this role where we had 2 to 3 family retreats a year. We had 1 cohort of Radiance, our spouse program. We had 1 children's fair and 1 location and 1 week of camp. And this year we have on the calendar, there are 3 cohorts of Radiance. There are 3 camps. There are 3 family retreats. So it's tripled, just like that. And that's not because of anything to do with me as much as it is that people have seen a need. It's kind of like the people are asking for it. They want it. It's working. It's creating significant change inside of our families that is going to follow them through. And that is really, when somebody asks me, what's the scope of this program? What is the role of the NSF? And my answer to that is that I have absolutely no business answering that. But if you want to know, on side of my head, what that looks like, because I don't run the NSF. I just do family programs. That's my space where I am.
Just is not the right modifier. That's a big piece. That's a big part of
You're a big component to the success of it.
Yeah. But and you wrote the Radiance program. I love it.
Well, I think when people ask me that question, what I envision is that when people are welcomed into the unit, they get hailed in. There's a touch point that happens right there where there's a mentor, there's somebody that has lived life up to this point, is going to get you learned up on who we are or what we do. And that is going to carry you through. And at each stage and season of life that you serve inside of that unit, to include when you leave or when you retire and transition into civilian life, that you have accumulated this set of skills that allows you to thrive, so that it is less about, a lot of times we've coined the term surviving, how are you? Are you in survival mode, or are you just kind of vibing? And you're somewhere in between. We're surviving. But we want to be able to provide that. We want to be able to say, when people leave the regiment, they can say that the NSF touched them at some point throughout their journey and provided a space for whoever you are in that family, whether you're the service member or the spouse or the child. And that goes from when you come in the door with some initial training, some initial, you really need to know who you are, and you need to continue to develop that understanding as you move through this process. All the way through, our kids camp picks you up when you're young. We have a parenting as a team curriculum that I've written from the perspective of Clifton Strengths that really facilitates communication and creation of a family value system between couples. So when your kids are really young, you start that, you send them to camp in the summer. We have a teenage mentorship group leadership program that's in the works. And they move from that into scholarship, into a lot of them into service. My son is in college now and is in a ROTC and plans to, God help me, continue that on. I was just going to take this time that you're in college to take.
I see them all. They're going
But
to
I
do
mean,
what
it
they
is,
say, I think.
it's such an incredible scope that we have this front row seat to, that makes me so proud and it just energizes me in the sense that is like, that there is no one in my mind more deserving of the kind of support that we are able to provide as a foundation, because of our board, because of all of the work that goes into that, and especially because of the people who support it, that are just endlessly generous and incredible. But yeah, I mean, I hope that we don't grow that fast, because I might.
It's growing
out.
sustainably.
But
Yeah, it's growing, but it's
spreadsheet with the year over year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
It's positive from the auditor's side over here, so it's been going very well. I have three final questions. One is a rhetorical question. How do I sign my kids up for your kids camp? That's number one, because like I want to send them, and I feel like I get an honorary designee to go. So I would really love.
We can talk offline.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter would be like, "Can I fly the helicopter?" Like, sure, go ahead, honey.
Future Night Stalker.
Oh yeah. You want a future Night Stalker? Just take my daughter Molly. She's
I mean, depending on where you live, honestly,
yeah.
I mean, it's a YMCA camp, so there's lots of kids that attend that camp. You just need to know what week to sign up for.
I'll fly her to Tennessee. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Drop her off. She can be with Camp Katie. It's fine.
All right, good. I'm going to be on the lookout for it, because I'm sold on that. Other question I have too, and this is kind of wrapping up here, is you've talked a lot about all of the great work you're doing. You've talked about all of the programs you offer, how you've made that happen, all of the improvements, and all of the positives. How does the public help you? So, you've talked significantly about how you have helped the families, the children of members in the unit. How does the public help you? Because obviously, it's needed that the public continues to support these programs, to support our warriors, and to support those who do make the sacrifice that the unit and those that serve it make. How does the public help you?
To me, that's probably the most powerful. It's the engine that drives this whole thing. And so we see our donors, they're believers. We go to functions, they're in the community and they're out of it, and they're just admirers, so nightstalkerfoundation.org. I am not afraid to say every dollar, every contribution makes a difference. Some people do it anonymously. Some people attend our events. But we do not function without the generosity of our donors. And it's been a credible run. I'm part of the New York team up here, where we host at Freedom Tower. We've had Admiral McRaven in. We've had distinguished panels, and getting folks in to see who we are by listening to that, because of this huge chasm between who we are and the American public today. So it's easy to find out. nightstalkerfoundation.org. All the information's on there. I'm sure Katie and the rest of the board would love to talk to anybody if they want to reach out and talk to some of us, or just make a donation or attend an event. Come see us. There's stuff going on all the time. We have an events page, and we have a big New York event coming up this fall. That's held right at the top of Freedom Tower. And, it's just, we will not be able to do all the good stuff we do, all the stuff that Katie's talking about, without that generosity. And it's these guys on the board, most of them former Night Stalkers. It is their singular mission, right, to fund this. And it's been a wild ride. I've had to strap in for it. What a privilege.
Love every minute of it.
I have no notes. That was perfect.
Yeah. I mean, spot on.
They even put me on one of those, 47s and went out. And it was not even at night. It was during the day, so I could see, but it is like mind blowing, to just witness it from afar and to be in that and listen to them talk and take you through it. And this is stuff that we have done. The unit, when they've been able to do it, has accommodated and brought in their donors and the community that really believes in what they're doing, and right out to the range to see training and everything. So I can't imagine what it's like at nighttime, some faraway land.
We got to get you to a night range, Milan. That is, I'll tell you what.
That's different.
If you thought you were sleepy, you might
I know,
be
I am
wide awake. Like, where did that come from? You need to get out this way, Brad. You need to get a group of your buddies together and come out. We do they do a Night Stalker experience.
Craig told me all about this, and I'm like,
really
I need to go. Yeah. Craig was explaining it to me, and I'm like, I need to be there. And I have
come to New York. They're doing a really cool demonstration in Tampa in the next couple of weeks as part of a big convention that's happening down there. So I mean, get on the website and you'll see like there's always something that's going on. You can find us on social media as well. We have an Instagram account and a Facebook account that are linked. So either one of those platforms, you can find, whenever we do an event, we'll throw pictures up there of it so that you can kind of get an inside look at what a children's fair looks like, or what a Radiance retreat looks like, or one of the, there's a lot of that's on there from last summer about kids camp, if you want to see some of those pictures and videos. But there's also a lot of, showcasing our scholarship program and who those named scholarships represent and who those people were and what they did. And the kids and young adults, I should say, that get to represent that as scholars. And it's really cool. So I would encourage anybody to just go.
It's very humbling.
Well, it kind of gives you like, for me, I love the scholarship program because I love to see these kids that are working really hard and doing hard things, because I think they just they've grown up in a society that will just teach you that complacency is the way, comfort and complacency, right? And these kids are against the grain. They are working really hard, and I love to be around the scholarship recipients. We have a dinner to honor them every year in May, and it just renews my faith in humanity. Like, okay, we're going to be all right, y'all. We're going to be all right, because there's some really incredible young people that are out in the world. And I like to think that it's not in spite of the way that they lived, but because of the life that they lived as Night Stalker kids that has really prepared them to be difference makers, just like the guys and girls who served. And I don't know.
If any of those kids are going into accounting, can you send my resume, and I can make sure that they have a future job lined up, because I will hire every single one of them just based on the ethos and values that you've presented.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They're like the Night Stalker echoes. I have one little thing to say. I don't know if you hit your 3 questions, Brad, but I was at a conference for 50 years of women that have been integrated into the Federal Service Academies, where they get to be commissioned as leaders in 1976, July 7th. This year is 50 years. On the panel, they had Vincent Brooks, who's the first Black 4-star general. And he introduced the women who led the academy. They're the first captains. They were the highest ranking position for all 4,400 cadets. Now, I think it was the second first captain that spoke, and her name was Lindsay Danilik. She got married. One of the first things she talked about was she was the first and last Little Bird helicopter pilot in the 160th. Mm-hmm. Yes, she is the first and last woman to fly in the regiment and spent 6 years there. And I was just floored, because I knew that she'd been there, but she was number one. She's out doing her own thing now. And it's possible, it happens. And I just left I was inspired, text her like, wow, this is great. I loved your speech. But they're very special breed of people that end up in this unit. And it didn't surprise me. We ran track, she and I. She was a track captain, a 400-meter hurdler, and she got herself into that unit. And I'm like, man, that is so cool.
Oh, it's super cool. Last question. Milan, what's the name of your book?
Funny you should ask. It's Raising Athena. A mother and daughter attend West Point 30 years apart. And it's really, what does it look like today? And what does it look like when I was there in the 80s? And I will say this, for me doing something at that time, I knew what I was getting myself into. My brother didn't want me to go. My mother forbid me to go. I just looked at the next person and said, well, that guy could do it. Surely if he could do it, I could do it. But to step out as a parent of my daughter who wanted to go there, I had mixed feelings. And I finally felt I think, what Katie has been living and military families have been living for a long time. And that is the fear that you have as a parent for your child doing something in your family. It's so different. All three of my kids are serving. My son just got back from Korea. My daughter got back from Wiesbaden in Poland. My youngest one is getting her commission in a couple weeks. And it's really a look at history, but it's also, as a mother and daughter in a new military tradition that really didn't exist before, who is the person that decides to serve today? It is just our particular story, but I share a lot of other narratives, and it really is to show who is the person that is serving today. So, like, I had to set it down. That was some heavy stuff, Katie. Like, I wasn't sleeping, and I could have slept on a dime in the past. To be worried about your family is a whole new level of fear. And to write a book that takes this long, 8 or 9 years, it's something has to sustain it. And I would say fear as a motivator, and then guilt. Guilt for the people that have buried their children, that have buried their soldiers, right? Like that is a sustaining force. So anyway, that was my book. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing
It's
that. Yeah.
Incredible. I haven't finished it yet, but
yeah.
it is. I mean, I just read it and I'm like, oh my God, I have to put it down and like walk away. It's just so
it's next on my list.
It's incredible. It's so congratulations, Milan.
Yeah.
No, thank you so
Congrats
much.
on that.
Beautiful.
It's written for me, but it's really for all the people that have to carry this. It's a heavy thing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I could probably talk for another 3 hours because I love talking to you ladies, and this is like a ton of fun, and I love everything that your foundation does, and I will continue to do that and support that as best we can. But, I just want to say, Katie and Milan, I really, thank you for being here today. Thank you for dedicating your time, sharing a lot of just things that, are personal to share. We appreciate that, and sharing all the successes that you had. I think it's great to hear. And for those that, are looking to support a great foundation that's doing great work in the world for the unit and for the country as a whole, it's definitely a great place to support. So really appreciate your time. And super excited that you're able to be here today again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brad, for all you do with this podcast. You are an emergency responder too. You're getting our word out there. nightstalkerfoundation.org. Love it. Thrilled to be here. Real honor.
And all my warriors out there, thank you for listening. Subscribe and meet us right back here for another episode of With Them Civic Warriors. Really appreciate your time. Bye, everybody.